Although we live in a modern society built on steel, brick and mortar, oil, and other luxuries, our minds are still programmed to think within the Stone Age. The primary goals of the human species could be broken down into two. Number one, to reproduce. If you do not reproduce, you do not create family lineage. You do not create an heir to your throne. Therefore, the human species wants to continue to live, and not producing and not contributing to that causes you harm. It causes you anger. That's why the corn industry, but take the C, replace it with a P, I'm not about to get censored for that, is so lucrative. It's the number one industry in the entire world. That's because even though we are more civilized, we compete in the marketplace instead of the woods, we still want to reproduce. The second is to survive, reproduction and survival. One of the ways we do this to survive is that we want to hold on to resources. I was watching Hoarders the other day. In the episode, there was an older man who had all kinds of stuff. His biggest collection was comic books. He had everything from Star Wars to Ninja Turtles, Batman, DC, Marvel, all that. He even had multiple copies of the same comic book. His son, who wanted to help his dad out because his dad was struggling financially due to his hoarding habit, came to an agreement with his dad that he was going to sell a couple of the comic books that he had copies of. The dad seemed willing to do it. The dad seemed okay with it. But the morning he came to pick that stuff up and to go to a flea market, trade show, whatever he was going to, his dad started to freak out and he had a mental breakdown. It's not just unique to him, that's just more of an extreme example. I remember when I was a kid, my mom would give away toys I no longer used. When you're one, you don't use the same toys as when you're five, and when you're 10 or 11, you use different toys than you do when you're five, right? I remember she would put the toys we weren't using into a box, and then she would drop off that box at the daycare where those other kids could use it. I remember each time she would do that, I would pick one toy out of the box that I totally ignored. I totally acted like it didn't exist. I would act like that was my favorite toy on the planet. I would throw a fit if she were to get rid of that toy. This worked on multiple occasions. But as soon as she gave away the toys and that toy was still what I had, let's say an alligator, there was a little toy alligator that I liked to play with in the bathtub when I was a kid. But as I got older, I no longer cared about the alligator. I moved on to G.I. Joes. I remember my mom was wanting to give away that toy alligator. She had it in the box. I threw a fit. And then for about 2 days, I slept with that alligator. I played with that alligator. And then as soon as I knew he wasn't going anywhere, I lost it in my room. Eventually they caught on to it, but that was just my natural inclination, my natural instinct to want to hold on to resources. And that's because in the days of hunting and gathering, losing a lion could mean the difference between eating for a week or starving to death, especially during harsh winters. Same thing with water. If you found clean water, if you were to spill all that water before you had modern water systems, that could mean life or death. And that's why when a sports team loses, it's life or death for some of the fans. Your state, your province, your city, your school, whatever represents you, loses to another area. That's equivalent to Rome losing to Greece. And that's why you see riots, that's why you see tribalistic tendencies during a lot of sporting events. Another area where this is prevalent is losing individuals. We equate losing an individual, whether it's through death, whether it's through moving, whether it's through other unforeseen circumstances, as losing. We don't want to do that. We don't want to lose anybody. I noticed I had a couple of friends that I used to hang out with quite a bit. They got busy, they're living their lives, whatever. I would hit them up a couple times wanting to hang out. They would barely respond back. Sometimes they would respond back, whatever. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm done, but I'm not going to ghost them. I'm not that type of guy. I'm a pretty straightforward guy. I tell people what I think. I'm not afraid to. I'd rather talk to somebody's face than talk shit behind their back. I told that person rather, that it's probably good if we go our separate ways. I left my jacket, my coat, my favorite hat, and my jacket at a friend's house. I told my friend, I texted him and I said, hey man, is your roommate at your house? I want to go by. I want to pick up my hat. I want to pick up my jacket. I don't want any drama. I don't want any bullshit. I just want to go our separate ways. And then he called me begging for me to not stop talking to him. And that's what they do. When they know that what they had is gone, then they start to appreciate it. Then they start to regret it. Then they start to want it. But you got to ask yourself, do you want to be liked or respected? General Patton, Napoleon Bonaparte, they were respected. Caesar was respected, not necessarily liked. I would rather be respected, deal with people on my own terms, than to be a bitch. And that's what people want you to do. They want you to be okay with them using you on your own terms. But then when you want to use them on your own terms, you're the bad guy, you see. Everybody wants to be able to punch somebody in the face, but nobody wants to get punched back, right? That's sort of, no, everybody wants freedom, but nobody wants the consequences of that freedom, whatever comes along with it, right? That's sort of the way that they think. That's why the best thing you can do is have some self-respect. Understand that you as a person had to value yourself. If you don't value yourself, nobody else is going to. You only get as much bullshit as you put up with when it pertains to relationships. If you work at a place and they put you through so much bullshit and you don't feel like your compensation is worth it, you can either stay there and take it up the ass, or you can move and go somewhere else. Same thing with people and relationships. Other than your children, if somebody's giving you more harm, more pain, and they're not doing anything for you to add to your life, then just keep it moving. Think about it. Why would you add extra stress to your life that you don't need? Why would you add extra harm to yourself that doesn't benefit you in any particular way? The way to do it is to simply do it like this. Give everybody a chance, have a good time, and then find out your purpose. When you have a purpose, that's when you really, truly are empowered. You go along the way on your journey. Along the way, you're going to meet some people. They're going to get on the train. They're going to get off the train. But you got to be singular minded, meaning that you want to get to that destination. If people get off, they can't get back on. Anybody can get on, but they got to pay the toll. That's the way I look at it. But if they're not adding anything to your life, then why have them in your life? The whole point of having friends is to add gravy to the meal, right? You cook the meal, everything you have to cook, and then you add extra gravy. Gravy's an additive. You can eat biscuits without gravy. You can eat turkey without gravy. But of course, it doesn't taste as good as it did, right? The gravy, the extra additive on it, makes the thing better. But if the gravy tasted bad when you were making biscuits and gravy, why would you add the gravy in the first place? Simple logic. That's why you've got to deal with people on your own terms. You can't be a bitch. Give them a chance. If they don't give you a chance, be direct with them, and then you can ghost them. If they don't answer back, just ghost them. I've done that before. I hit somebody up, they didn't answer back, so I just ghosted them. But I think everybody deserves an explanation. Like, for instance, if I worked at a place, I wouldn't just quit in the middle of nowhere and never come back. I've never walked off the job before. I used to work in a restaurant, and people all the time would walk off the job and not come back, and they would ignore every single phone call from the boss because they didn't want to be held accountable for what they did. I put in my 2 weeks notice and I found another place to work. I always think it's good if somebody treats you fairly. Even if they don't treat you fairly, everybody deserves an explanation. That way they don't sit around wondering why. And sometimes the why gets your mind wandering, blah, 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 blah. But the point I'm making is dealing with people on your own terms is liberating. Knowing that you still have a purpose, you still have a reason, you still have something, an objective that you're trying to reach. And if people come, they come. If they don't, they don't. But that's about all I got.